So in today's video, I wanted to go over some ways that you can ease into dancing, if that's something that you want to start doing. But before we get started, I do want to bring in and invite Reiki to be a part of this video. And I'll explain why in just a moment. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Reiki is life force, universal life force energy. It's a technique that originated from Japan where energy, that universal life force energy, can flow through the practitioner to another, whether it's another person, animal, or plant, and or other objects too, actually. The reason why I brought in Reiki for this video is because I know some people, and I personally had experience with this, would kind of freeze up and tense when it comes to even the thought of dancing, let alone like being able to actually ease into any sort of movement and being able to enjoy it. And for me, for the sake of transparency, one of the things that did help me be able to move past the freeze ups and the tension and the shame that I felt about dancing and how I looked and being watched and all of these other things. A big part of that for me was actually energy work. Energy work with myself, being trained with Reiki, I get to do that. But also working with another energy session like practitioner person. And I personally believe that some people have various different blocks, different areas of energy flow that is just cut off or just severely diminished that really could use that support. So my intention with the Reiki is to hopefully it will support you in being able to receive exactly what you need in this time in alignment with your highest good and your deepest service. So, with that said, when it comes to easing into dancing, you might even have to reframe dancing in general. You might have to start out with, like for me, I had to reframe it as a movement. Like, we're not dancing, we're just moving. Because there's a need to have an openness with this. If it's something that you felt nervous about, or you would physically tense up, mentally tense up, like even have intense emotions with it, there's a lot of contraction coming in, shrinking in kind of energy that comes with that in a lot of different levels. And so a lot of coaches and people will go and say, every reaction is connected to a thought, and you need to go and, challenge that limiting belief, challenge that thought, and replace it with one that does resonate. And I think that that's true. And at the same time, I also feel that sometimes it's easier to start with reframing, because the purpose of that is to create some openness. Whatever part of you that is nervous or tensing or freezes or shuts down when it comes to the thought of dancing, let alone dancing, that part needs to feel safe enough to be able to open up and lean into it. And I feel like just telling someone to just lean into it, sometimes that doesn't quite work by itself. Okay, um, so I recommend starting off with reframing it as movement, because that's what dance is. At its essence, to me, it is like a sacred, beautiful, freeing, liberating form of movement and self-expression. But at the beginning, for me, it was just movement. Just like me moving my hands right now, me moving my head, like that's movement. I'm like, okay, that part of me is like, okay, we can vibe with that, all right. Okay, we can move because we do that all the time anyway, right? And so then if music is something that is triggering for you, like if it triggers all of those reactions, those responses to dancing, then maybe try doing movements without music. If music helps you to be able to get into your own flow, get into that groove, then feel free to play music. For me, I had to actually start out with no music because even listening to music, when I can feel the tension in the back of my neck, I could feel like my jaw clenching, I could feel like me starting to disassociate. Really, I would start to shut down. And then when you're in a shutdown state and you're just kind of staring off into space somewhere, you're not in your body, you're stuck in a memory somewhere. So I recommend, if music is triggering for you, start without music. If music is enhancing for you, then start with music. And go with whatever music, when you're ready or if you're ready, that your body is responding to. Not the music that you think you're going to dance to. Okay? Like for me, I had music that I used to really love to move to when I was younger. And when I played that music again to try and get into this, it was very triggering for me. I was like, this is not working. Because what you don't want, you want to lean into this, but you don't want to force yourself to move and dance in ways that are just completely unpleasant for you, because then you're creating the same memory of, okay, this is not fun, this is not joyful, and part of this whole process is creating positive, nourishing and empowering, joyful, liberating memories with connected to dancing, connecting to movement again. And so once you figured out if it's music or no music, and you figured out what music it is, for me it had to be instrumental music without lyrics initially, and then we started dancing to Aaliyah, like the R&B singer. Like, that's not something that I would have expected. I thought I would have moved to something different. But initially I started no music. And I invite you to just do very, very small movements. And these movements do not have to make sense. Eventually, what you'll notice is your body will have ways that it actually wants to move, because our bodies have our own intelligence, right? And it'll start to want to move in ways that may not make sense. They might look awkward. They might feel awkward. If you don't know what movements to start doing, because that connection just isn't very strong right now, you could either A, start with an arm and just hold it out, and you might just rock it a little bit. Just a little bit, and see. And you might find that it might want to do its own movements, And like I said, this is why I call it movement. There does not have to be any rhythm to the movement. There doesn't even have to be any flow, like what it is right now with my hands. Like I feel flow with my hands, like the Tai Chi, You don't even have to have that. It could be super duper awkward, and I have done that, like this. It could be super duper awkward. It could be just one side wanting to move and the other one's just like, okay, It could be really subtle, like with your fingers, you know? You know, I invite you to really kind of tune in with your personality and try and start with little movements that fit that personality. So if your personality is more on the regal, elegant side, you might start with some more elegant movements, you know, maybe involve the fingers a little bit, you know, like as if you're a conductor, you're just like, you know, or if your personality is like, you know, is a little more, I don't know what the word is, but you know, there's more angles to it. You might, you know, just bring in some more angles to it. And you notice, like for me, like my body just starts moving on its own. It just kind of gets into a rhythm. It might even have an imaginary rhythm that's like, yes, okay, you're going for starting to feel whatever is you, because that's what you're looking for. When you are dancing, whenever you see someone who is just having a great time, like, yes, you know, like they're really feeling themselves and you just can't stop watching them, that's because it's them. They're feeling themselves, like their presence is just so here. You can't help but watch. You know what I'm saying? And there's a feeling of when you start to kind of feel yourself, and I don't mean feeling yourself like bringing yourself up like self-esteem, but I mean you start to feel your own energy and you start to feel your own self-expression. You start to feel your personal flow. And that is joyful. That is joyful for the body. That is a very liberating space, because when we're wound up and we're shut down and we're like really caved in on ourselves or really tense, there's no space for our spirit and our, you know, our bodies and our energy to be able to flow through freely. And we're designed to be able to do that. And so I really invite you to, as you go through this process, take your time. I don't think it's realistic to go from being in a tense, like really like space, or a shutdown space where you're just zoned out, to just, you know, like I don't, that's not realistic. I had that expectation in my mind and it was very humbling. I really had to take it slow over a period of time. But what I found is by doing that, it really helped. If you still find that you're having a hard time really being able to open up and ease into this process, I invite you to connect with an element that resonates with you and start doing those movements around that. So I'll give you an example. For me, that's water. Water and air. Yes, those are like, I love those elements. And there's a lot of it in my chart. So when I started to do movements in the shower, no music, connecting with the energy of the water there, feeling the water on my skin, feeling the energy of the water, because water has its own energy field too, and feeling that interact with mine. And what it did was, when I did do little movements, I was able to feel a little more joy in those movements than I was able to just doing it out here. And technically, yes, there's air all around me. However, for me, I really feel it when there's like a good breeze, or it's like before a storm, like that kind of air. And I'm not feeling any of that right here in my laundry room, right? You know, so if fire's your thing, like maybe the sunlight in front of a candle, fireplace, you know. If it's earth, feet on the dirt, I don't know, like on the grass, you know. Or you could try holding a rock while you're moving around and doing some movements and stuff, you know. But starting out small, I personally found that one of the things that helped me was that elemental connection, starting with like moving in the shower. And then I just started like dancing on my own. And then I started to have music and I'm like, oh, yes, I am feeling that, you know, and just it went from there. So, um, so to recap, start small. Small movements, they don't have to be rhythmic, they don't have to be dancey. If you find that exercise is your thing, you might start with exercise and start to really get into the feel and the flow of that if you haven't yet. I personally found cardio kickboxing to be a nice segue into dancing because some of those movements that you do with cardio kickboxing, they could be dance moves. They really could if you think about it. But to recap, reframing is movement, giving yourself that space and that grace. And if you need to call in grace, like literally, I call in grace into my heart to help ease and soften whatever's going on within you as you start doing those little movements, like I said, that maybe don't make sense, do it. If you need to go and do it near your element, whether it's water, like the movements being near water, earth, fire, air, you know, whatever it is, ether, do that. And just start to notice and enjoy the flow as best as you can. As best as you can, notice whatever else is there and just don't fight it, you know, just let it be there. And the more you start to feel that flow that is you, the more that you start to feel your energy and start to feel more of your spirit come into your body, the more you can feel embodied. And I've personally found it to be very transformative for me as far as being able to get myself out of depressed states, being able to have something fun to do around the house, you know? So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on this. I hope that this video was very helpful as far as helping you to be able to really ease into dancing, easing into movement, and really embracing your own energy more. Because when we're in our own energy more, we're not feeling as stressed about things. When you move, whatever movement, that is the key to getting out of shutdown states, getting out of those dissociative states. You have to move. You gotta move. If you're feeling anxious and full of energy, that's a beautiful way to go and move that energy out. Because when you're dancing, when you're moving, when you're doing those things, you're also moving energy. So instead of that anxious energy being stuck in one part of the body or one part of the energy body, it actually gets to move through. Just like how when you exercise or you move, that's getting blood flow moving through. It's the same thing with our energy. So I know this was a longer video than usual, but I thought it was so important, especially with my own personal journey with this. And so I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching to the end if you did. I'd love to hear comments on what your thoughts are on this video, on this topic, what your own journey has been like. And I hope that the Reiki was helpful for you. You may not have felt anything, you might have felt something, but either way, the Reiki will work on its own. It has its own intelligence. And it does not override your free will. So if it wasn't something that you were interested in receiving, you don't have to worry about it. So with that said, I will see you guys in another video. Bye.